Hello, good morning and welcome to my little arty corner of the internet. Well, it's morning where I am because it's nearly 11:30 on Friday the 26th of November 2021 still. And I've had a busy arty morning already. I've drawn I think 3 templates for adorable dogs. So that's quite good for me. I think I'm beginning to find my flow. I wish I could have found it sooner. I wouldn't have had so much stress and frustration with it. Anyway, I need a break from dogs for a while before I go back to them. And I just feel the need to draw some botanicals and seed poddy type things. Now then, where did I put my... I had a pencil here. Oh, there it is. Because I've just been drawing with pencil, which means I've probably got grubby sides of my hands. But yesterday I drew these seed pods, which made me smile. I do have to say, I love the simplicity of these, but these are really almost the stars of the show, aren't they? But I just wanted to add some different kinds of seed pods to this. So I'm going to start with my pencil because I really do want to get the outline of them right. It's just a guide. I'm going to draw one like that and one that is more rounded like this. And while I'm doing this, I'd just like to say thank you for the likes, new subscribers, hello and welcome, for the lovely comments that have been left. And I'm just so glad that people are enjoying what I'm doing. I doubt I'm going to please everybody, but that's called life, isn't it? So I've got 3 different kinds of shapes here, but I'm going to essentially do the same kind of thing within them. So this first one, I'm going to turn it on its side because I do want to work. And with this one, I'm going to work from the top down. This one I'll work from the bottom up, and this one I'll work from the middle out. I've got to remember that. There's a reason for this. But I'm going with basically circles within circles, a bit of a wobbly one here. Now I am going to mostly, or no I'm not, I just fibbed. I am going to stack them and put them behind each other because there is a reason for me going from top to bottom, bottom to top and middle out. Some of you may already have guessed. And where there are little gaps that aren't all that even along the edge, I'm just going to pop some smaller circly blobby things in, simply because I can. These will remind me of a seed pod of a plant that I actually know, but I'm not quite sure which one it is because my brain doesn't function as it used to in some ways. There we go. This nib has become quite worn, so it's a lot thicker than it used to be. But it's fine, it'll do its job for me. It is no fall, but I've been drawing on some of the lovely all media paper that I like from Sea White. And it does have a texture to it, so it does tend to wear away at the nibs just a bit, which is fine. I'm aware of it and I'm happy to go with it, because if it's not that wearing them away, it's my heavy-handedness. So, and I'm deliberately not making these perfectly spherical, circular, because they're not 3-dimensional yet. And I am just letting them overlap as they will. So it's always nice to do something that I find relaxing and relatively easy to do. Drawing dogs is definitely well outside of my comfort zone, and it's been causing lots of issues with my confidence in my ability to create colouring templates and the like. And typically now I'm coming to the end of the book, even though I did a lot of drawing before I started. It's only now I'm going, oh yes, I remember now. This is how yeah. But it'll be what it is. Because everything's still in sketch form, I've yet to do all the inking in, so when I come to inking in, I'll be able to make those adjustments in style without too much problem, I would imagine. Because there are amendments to be made to a number of the templates as I ink in. But I'm not going to go with the frustration of altering them before I ink them in now. Time is flying by with it. And I really don't want to have to ask for another extension in time, though that may be necessary. We'll see. Okie dokes, so this is the first one done of these seed pods, and I find them really quite interesting. I wish I could remember what plant inspired me for these. Don't think it's mullein. I don't know, somebody will come back and tell me, I'm sure. No, they do need a stem. So I'm going to do one of my weirdly architectural ones, I think, because I can. And because I like things that are a little bit odd, I think. And of course, these bits that separate the sections of the stem can be pretty much as I'd like them to be. So that's one. So with this one, I started at the top and worked my way down. So it feels like everything is overlapping each other from the top down. Almost like tiles on a building where they overlap from the top down. This one, I said I was going to work from the bottom up, which is exactly what I am going to do. And I am going to overlap them, not put them, well, not often put them so they aren't overlaps. There'll be occasions where there's very little overlap or no overlap at all, but that's fine. You just go with the flow on these. The size doesn't have to be consistent, it's not a representative drawing really. It's the inspiration. It's come from nature. Must have. I've seen this somewhere and I don't know where. I doubt it came straight out of my imagination, because it happens sometimes, but this has the feeling more of being something I have seen. Yeah, this is very much more like mullein. I think it's mullein. Now I've got to remember that, haven't I, and put a link in the description to mullein seed heads. I can guarantee you I won't find any. Or rather, I'll look and I'll go, nope, it wasn't that. This is getting a bit too organised for my liking, so I'm going to throw in some disorganised bits and pieces here, different sizes, because it's all getting a bit big. Because there's so much overlapping going on, I'm losing these centres in some ways as well. Appearance that I've actually got these darker centres. Well, they're not darker at the moment, but they may end up being so. There's one that is just there in its entirety, as that one is. I'm going to go back and fill these little gaps in. Remember, I'm still using those little blobs on the outer edge. This is actually an interesting one because it does show the difference between overlapping and not overlapping and the kind of feel or effect you get. It's definitely a mutant one, this one. It's half of one and half of another. Or chimera. Whatever it is, it's really fine. There we go. So that one's starting at the bottom and working my way up to the top. This one's starting at the top and working my way down. So this one I'm going to start at the centre. Yeah, I know I haven't put a stem in that one, but that's fine. And I am going to overlap these as I go. Not always overlapping, but making a real mess of my pen work here. This is why it's good for me to come and draw, because I'm sketching with pencil. I'm not sketching, you know, as neatly or as accurately as I would do in pen, because it's a guide for the finished drawing, nothing more, nothing less. And so my fine motor control skills are not as precise as they normally would be as a result, so it is a good thing for me to do something like this as well. In fact, I didn't do any kind of drawing before I got stuck into the templates. I drew some yesterday and I was beginning to feel much happier about what I was drawing, although I was very frustrated with what it took me hours to draw a really quite simple one. I was doing it digitally because I wanted to make use of some tools there, but dear goodness. Talk about getting myself into a frustrated state about it. I've added a bit at the top. Which direction you go in makes a huge difference in the appearance, I think. This one looks more like I'm looking down on a stretched out flower more than anything else. This one is interesting because these overlap going upwards. These sort of overlap going down, but there's a lot there that don't really overlap, and I quite like that. Just going to add a couple of bits in here. Time for stems. Okie dokes, let's have a look. It's interesting. Well, there may be some of these hidden behind here. Who knows? There could be something else hidden behind there. And I am going to just a couple more sections here. and finishing that one off. Just a bit of a wibbly wobbly bendy, well, you know, sort of more bent zigzaggy back and forth, but that's fine. And this one, I'm going to put a row of sort of oval shapes, tall and thin, to create one kind of the connection to that, I think. And then I'll do the same here. Reminds me of sort of some of the beads you'd get in sort of like Eastern jewellery. It's very heavy compared to the top, but that's okay, I can live with that. Just trying things out. As I keep saying, this is a sketchbook, it's not finished artwork. But I was almost tempted to actually start a complete sort of like drawing, illustration, that you could draw along with me. But I chose instead to go with this. So there we go. 3 different kinds of seed heads. I think I like this one the best. This one's okay. This one is just, it's not the bit at the bottom, it's this in its entirety. Having said that, shadow and highlight may actually help. So with no further ado, I need to fertle around to get my pot of stuff out. Dear goodness, it's bright out. It's lovely. So I think after I've done this and uploaded it and everything, I think I may just have to go out for a bit of a stroll day. I'll see. This one is a 6B. It's one of the graphite matte pencils from Faber-Castell, because I really want to get some really dark shadows at the top of these. Now I could do this in ink, and I may actually do some for comparison, because again, this is a sketchbook, so it's a place to experiment, and if things are different, you know, try different things out on the same image, then all's fine and well as far as I'm concerned. Okie dokes, let's have a look. Just do that. Just do a bit of that. Just move that down a bit. Yes, got that there. So instantly that's beginning to give that sense of volume here, isn't it? We'll just adjust the light over this because it is rather darkish today. I don't know what's wrong. I think it's just one of those days where I'm just going, oh, what am I doing? Okie dokes, let's have a look. I'm really beginning to love using graphite along with a medium to add colour on top of it, because I find that it's that subtlety of shadow and highlight, but the way that colour sits on top of this graphite to colour it in an intriguing kind of way. I don't know. It's the way it tones the colour down as well. I can't explain it. There's something alluring, I suppose it's a good word, in it. It's just something that I just like. And how can we describe why, sometimes you can give a reason, like, I love potato and fenugreek curry. I love the smell and the taste of the fenugreek. I love the stacks of garlic that's put into it. I love the other veggies that come with it. I love the warm spiciness that comes. But why do I like these things? Because I do. Why don't I like avocado? I don't like avocado. I can, I don't like the slimy texture. I don't like the taste. Is it just those things? No, it's probably a combination of things. It just does not appeal to me. There's probably bad examples there, but never said I was good at that. Sometimes we just like things because we do. There's no reason why. It's just because we do. And I think that's fine. I really do. Do we really need to always explain why we like something? I think it depends what it is. Art is a very subjective thing, isn't it? Is that there will always be people who dislike a particular style of art or a particular way that somebody does something or explains something. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that what you're doing is awful or dreadful. It just means that it's not their taste, or they just don't like what's being said or done. It's nothing against the person in any way, shape or form. Yeah, it's just funny, isn't it, how people can take things so personally at times when it's not a personal thing. It's personal to me. It's not an attack on somebody's person, I suppose. I don't know what I'm talking about here. I'm having one of those moments, I think, where I'm musing out loud without realising. I think what I'm saying is that when it comes to art, as I've already said, it's very subjective. And if somebody doesn't like what you do or like the way that you do things, then that's about them. It's not about you. And I think the right way is to create art for yourself, possibly as much as you can within, sort of like reason, but ultimately it needs to be for you. It's a bit different at times for me because I am working for, I do work for a company, and for Dover, for the Creative Haven series. And so when you work for other people, you have to produce what they want as well. But I still think it has to be something that that you like yourself. Now then, what colour is this? This is burnt ochre. So I'm going to have a look at this just off on the side of the page here, because I'm going to see whether I like this colour without graphite, because I'm trying to look for a colour I can put in here. Oh gosh, look how much water came out of my water brush just then. Okay, quick edit. I had a phone call from my doctor's surgery about the flu jab. So I sort of had to say, I've already had it, because I have. I had mine back in September. Okay, that's quite nice, but I'm going to look for a redder colour. Watch this one. It's Pompeian red. Let's have a look, because I really want something that's a seed poddy colour. Got to edit a video. Oh no, that actually might be quite nice. Well, the only way to find out is to use it, so perhaps I'll do some with this and some with another colour. So I'll put the red at the top, and then let's have a look. So I'm using the Albrecht Dürer watercolour pencils here for this. God, too much water in this brush. Don't know what's happened with it. Just has. That tones that red down beautifully. And of course, bearing in mind, I've also got the background colour of the, I'm going to put some in these little blobby bits on the edge, because they'll need just a bit of colour as well. This really is flooding out. I don't know what's happened. It's fine though. So if there's not enough colour, I can always go back and add more. That's the lovely thing about water soluble or watercolour pencils or watercolours. Even any media, I suppose, in a way. Markers even. Alcohol markers. Just gives me that opportunity. So there, all I wanted to do was to add a bit more colour in. I will do just a couple more. And then I'm going to put a little bit in some. But I'm going to use some of this. Oops. Okay, that one will get some burnt umber in it, which is fine. Maybe a good idea just to start blending them to change the colour as I go down. So one colour is nice, but two colours makes it more interesting. And it's such a small space, I'm not going to try a third colour. Not on a Friday lunchtime. Put it that way. There we go. So it's subtly beginning to change to this browny colour. So I'm going to pop plenty of this on, some of the others. Because the graphite is so dark, I do need a fair amount of this to bring things out. And I'm just going to put a little bit in those. Then I'm going to go to this, which is, I think it's dark Naples ochre, which is essentially a yellow ochre colour. It's lovely. And then at the bottom I'll have ones that are essentially yellowish as opposed to the brownish colours I've got. So bear in mind I did put that browny colour in some as well. And I am just wiping my brush off every now and again just to, and that one there, I didn't put any pencil on there. That actually she looks quite nice. Part of me goes, oh Angela, you should have put the red at the bottom, because I was working upside down. So that's really quite nice. And by putting the shadow at the top of these, it looks like these are curving up to the back. So with these ones, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the graphite on the other side. I'm not going to do all of these, probably, with you, in terms of colouring them in anyway. This will just give you an idea of the difference again of how just placement of shadow varies, how something looks. So I'm just putting these at the bottom. I'm putting a fair amount of graphite down because I do want quite a dark shadow. I like lots of contrast, so this really is quick, fast and dirty. Quick and dirty. But again, that's fine. So it's a question of just teasing some of this graphite up. And I am going to tease it up where these areas go behind. Just to the sides a little. I'm not going to get a perfect blending out here because I've not been very careful about adding where the graphite is, and these Pitt pencils are great. They don't quite blend quite as smoothly as traditional graphite pencils. Did I say Pitt pencils? They are Pitt, but then graphite matte graphite. This one's not too bad. I think it's because it most probably has a lot more graphite in it to get that dark colour. The smaller they are, the harder it is to use a blessed tortillon to get in there. But there we go. So this one may give that illusion of these blobby things being domed, really. Okay, I am going to go with cadmium orange for these, I think. It was cadmium orange I really liked elsewhere. I'm not going to do all of them, I'm just going to do some, because that'll leave a comparison for you as well as me. Okay, let's have a look. To clean some of the colour off because it's getting a bit intense there. You can see the difference this water just makes, just that hint of colour. So I hope you're all fine and well there, and doing well as I do, finding time in the day to be creative just for the pleasure of being creative. That's what these are, really. Videos are about me taking that time to be creative, to share with others, to give you an idea of things you could try or do, and just being creative for the sake of being creative more than anything, as well as hopefully inspiring you. So let's have a look. And I'm taking just a tiny hint of colour from the edge of where I've applied the coloured pencil, and using that to fill the rest of the space with a hint of colour, and then making sure I get the darkest colour or the greatest amount of colour back where the shadow is, because that area is going to need just that hint, that bit more rather, of colour to show up on the graphite as well, especially. There we go. Still a bit damp here, but it's fine. Okay, and then I think I may just scratch my eye. Let's have a look and just pop some. Yeah, these are just dry down here. I'm just going to pop some. This is geranium, I think it is. Pale geranium lake. Geraniums are quite pretty flowers, but gosh, do they stink. They're not my favourites for that reason. I know other people enjoy the smell of them. I don't. And again, we're all different, aren't we? Why don't I like it? I don't know, I just don't. Find it unpleasant. This one is going to end up being just that little bit more reddish, thanks to that geranium lake. Just adds that extra bit of warmth and colour there. these do appear to be sort of like further away at the bottom, almost like they're doming up to the top. This one, I think it's just do as you will. I think I'd be tempted to just, you can be consistent with where the shadows are, but I think I'd also have to look at where they overlap. So for example here, I'm going to focus on putting shadow at the top and to where they overlap. So towards the top and where they overlap. This one's easy because it's just towards the top as is. This one, again, it's fairly easy because it's towards the top and where they overlap. So let's have a look. I'll do one side almost complete. These areas are tiny. Because even here, where these overlap, you'd have some shadow from them. So, don't know if you saw what I did there. This one, I've put shadow at the top, but also around these, because there's a lot of shadow there. So, to be careful how far I push or blend out this graphite. I really want to keep it in the darker areas. It does need a little hint of blending out just to soften the edge, otherwise you get this almost a natural edge, it feels to me. I like to soften it. And of course blending, if you're, like me, not being very careful about getting a nice smooth variation in how much graphite is down, this makes it so much easier. If I do blend it too much, I can always use an eraser to remove it. Okay, I'm going to go with my favourite, I think. Though these are pretty good. But it's this lovely turquoise colour, so let's have a look and see how this works here. I'm just going to do a couple. Remembering it's just taking that colour from the edge and then pushing the colour up towards where it's going to be the most intense. So quite pale here, and then could have done with cleaning my brush off before I attempted that one. If it dries back to lighting shades, then you can always go back afterwards and add more. But it does really need to be left to dry for a little while, so that hopefully the coloured pigments will sink into the paper and not move quite so easily with water the next time around. And here I do want some extra there, and just here as well. So is that helping? I don't know. Because obviously the one thing I haven't done yet is put colour around the outside. And I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do that. So there is shadow needed. So with these, I'm going to just put shadow where they overlap for now, where they'd be in shadow. So it's just thinking about what is under. It's like this area here, this area is under this particular part. This is this one. And I'll just have a look and see how that works. Again, Being careful not to fill all of that space because I do want some highlight. But here, where this is quite, this one here, there's quite a lot underneath, so that would be fine to make that grey extend in this top area here where that would be shadowed. Same here really. So that's okay. All right, I am going to, with this, I think that lovely turquoise that I've just used would work really nicely. And again, I'm going to put the most colour where the shadow is. And just try to very gently tease it out to where there would be very little colour or no colour if I can manage it. It's quite hard, I find, on such small spaces as this. It's got nothing to do with the size of the pencil, sharp pencils needed though, but it has a lot more to do with the brush. And I'm not an expert at painting by a long shot, so I just need to pick a bit more colour up there. This is an experiment for me because I've never added colour to this kind of seed pod before. I think I have drawn these seed pods in the past. They're familiar to me, I've done them. Perhaps not quite in the way I've done here. I can't ever remember if I've added colour to them, whether I've just added shadow and highlight as I've done. Add a bit of colour to some of these that are on the top, just to add that. So I'm going to have a look, and how is that working? She says taking your glasses off so I can see. It is, isn't it? This one here really does look like it's poking out towards me. This one is definitely set backwards, as is this one. So quite a lot in shadow. It's interesting. The other way of creating shadow is to use a pen. And that, of course, will help to guide your eye to where you want it to go. So if I take this bottom one here, and I could have done this before I added graphite, before I added colour, after the graphite, or however, but I'm going to have a look and do this now, is that I want to shape these lines in the direction that the contour lines would go. I don't want to go too far up, all the way up, because that would then it would fill the whole space with black, which would defeat the object of everything else, but it just adds this little hint of contrast even more. Don't know if I like it. I'd have to look at it in a moment and come back with fresh eyes perhaps. That adds a lot more intensity, doesn't it, to the shadow. Let's try on some of these here because I can. This is no 1 micron, so it's quite fine, but in comparison to the space it's actually not that as fine as perhaps I would like. But I don't think I have a finer pen on hand. In some areas there's not enough space really to put any of these little dots in. I like to do lines and dots for things like this because I find the dots break it up. I just find it pleasing. I don't know if I've said that right about it breaks up the lines so that you haven't got, it lightens up the intensity of contrast where you still want some but not as much, so using dots instead of lines. Try this one. I do think I prefer putting these in at the end. Graphite would dull the black down, which could be of benefit because it would be a way of helping it to become disguised a bit more. How's that doing? That helps with that illusion a lot more, doesn't it? It does. Yeah. I'm just looking and thinking. I think I've done just about everything I'd want to do for today. But what I do think I'm going to do, because I'm bound to see one. Let's have a look. We've got white gel pens. Got 08s, white jelly roll. Because these are my favourite way of adding some highlights. White charcoal's okay, but I tend to find it mutes things down in a way. So where I can add these dots, relatively opaque white, you can add the highlights just where I want it, but without muting these colours too much. Still lets the underneath colour shine through. Just what I quite like. So with this one, just paying attention to where the highlights of these areas would be, which is opposite where the shadows would be, or in between where the shadows are. And this one, it wouldn't be right out to the edge because there would be a bit of a shadow around the edge. These shapes, perhaps. Oh, jelly rolls, these need to be just about the last thing that you do, because if you want to go back and add more colour to the seed, to these individual seed bits, these react with water. So if you'd prefer to add these white and then add colour, I'd recommend using something like a souffle or a white glaze pen, because they add that highlight. They're permanent and you can do stuff over the top of it. So there we are, some different seed pods and an exploration of how you add the actual seed pods to them. I hope you've enjoyed this. Fingers crossed I can edit this to get rid of the phone conversation. So it always happens, doesn't it? It's odd because, strange thing, my phone wasn't ringing, but I turned around for some reason and I saw it was ringing. So I picked it up. So it put itself on silent. This phone that I have, it's a new phone, it seems to do this at random. I haven't worked out how or why it does it. It's bonkers. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this. It's something perhaps a little bit different today. Same but different. Different kinds of seed pods. These are ones that need to be drawn on quite a large scale. Like the ones from yesterday. Of course, the inner bits, you could put patterns and lines in. You can do anything with the shape and size. You can draw these as big as you want. You know, we could have drawn them much bigger, so there was more opportunity there. But I'm not going to. Not now. So it's time for me to get another mug of tea and settle down to getting this sorted and, fingers crossed, sorting myself out so I can go and get some sunshine while the sun shines. So I'll say thank you for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you enjoy what you see, please give a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and thank you to everybody who's subscribed, especially all the new people. Thank you for returning for all of my returning watchers. You're very much appreciated. And whatever else you do, take time to be creative each day. Take care now. Bye-bye. Bye all.